bit longer. It's just above knee length. And you need to make sure that your muslin's long enough. The book says to make it 2 1/4 inch longer than your skirt. I always tear a little bit more just because the iron shrink it. I've put in an HBL line. I marked my hip arc, my skin tight hip arc. I've marked a 1/2 inch ease. I've squared it down. This is not necessarily going to be my side seam, but it's going to give me a guideline to know what straight is. Okay? So, yeah.
Can you copy the...
You can copy your skirt for the width and all of that. We're changing the dart up here, but you certainly can. This part may change, the hip curve, because some of it may come out, and this is definitely changing. But if you want to, instead of measure, lay down your sloper and mark your line from that, you're absolutely welcome to do that. Okay, so I'm pinning it skin tight. I'm going to throw that ease in at the end. My dart is going to be at the princess seam. So I'm going to smooth over. I'm going to find my princess seam. I'm going to mark it. How do I mark it?
T.
With a T. Now, different forms have a different amount of kind of curvature happening back here. So the curvier forms may take up a larger dart. The less curvy forms will take up less of a dart. Okay? So I think I'm just going to start pinching. The idea is we want it to go smooth up from the hip. And remember this little X? I kind of have it pinned at the X. Oh, sorry. My form doesn't like to stay. But I'm just going to start kind of testing the waters with this dart. I'm going to fold it. If I fold 3/4 inch here, what does that equal? 1 1/2. Okay, so I'm folding 3/4 just to see how this works. That's going to give me about a 1 1/2 inch dart. And I'm going to see if I move this pin out of the way whether I can get a reasonably smooth hip. The idea is I want a reasonably smooth hip line up to the waist. I do want to pinch at ease here. So it looks like that's going to work for me. Looks like I can squeeze a little bit more into that dart. So I've made sure I'm happy with this. I've got my pinch. And I'm going to put a little bit more into my dart. So go for a minimum of 1 1/2. If you can get some more in there, great. Okay. What should I do with this dart? I want the center of it to be on grain, so I'm going to use my little scraper. Hold it tight at the top. I got to do it towards me, sorry guys. And scrape downwards. Now our basic block, I had told you to do 5 1/2 inches long. This, do 5 1/2 to 6, whatever your dart wants to be, but minimum 5 1/2, maximum 6. And it's going to vanish, you know, on its own. So mine's feeling like it wants to be 5 3/4 today, so I'm going to let it. We're doing a 22. This is going to be an exercise in trying to duplicate something. The final dress, you've got more leeway. You can decide how long, how short, whether you want to do contrasting stuff, how low the neckline, how whatever. Okay, so that one you get to be more of an independent designer. This one, you're still learning, and we're all going to do the same thing. Yeah, when you first start out, what's generally going to happen is you're going to work for a senior designer or a merchandiser who's going to be the one to come up with the ideas. And often you're the one that has to just execute. So it's a good idea to start training your eye to work with somebody else's idea to make it happen. Okay, so I've got my dart, I've got my pinch of ease. Now would be a good time to mark. So I'm just going to dot my waist. What should I do about this hip curve? I'm putting a T at the top of the side seam, but what should I do about my hip curve? Should I dot it right now? That would make it skin tight. Do I want it skin tight? No. So before I mark this, I'm going to pivot my ease in. So I'm going to move it to my 1/2 inch point. And then I'm going to dot the side seam ridge. Okay, so this should be quick. It should be quicker than the basic block for 2 reasons. 1, you've already done the basic block. 2, it only has 1 dart, right? But it's the same idea, just a single dart. I'm going to leave this side seam alone for now. What we're going to be doing, and this purple dress isn't pegged. After I made it and I put it on and I wore it a while, I wasn't happy with the straightness of it. I felt like it would look more feminine if we tapered it to the bottom and pegged it. And I figure that's another exercise that we can do. So instead of having our skirt be cylindrical, meaning the same size at the hem as the hip, we're going to take in the hem a little bit so it's more of a wedge shape. Okay? But I'm going to leave this alone for now because I'm going to determine my side seam only after I have my front done. It's more that we're going to drape it so it's straight and then take it in. Okay, so let's move this guy out of the way. Could you spin the dress around so we could see the... Thank you. Okay, I didn't mark that imaginary straight side seam down on this dress, or on the front. That's because we're going to be doing something called adding fullness to this drape. Do you see how there's some, it's blousier in the front, there's 2 pleats, and there's some actual added room inside. So we're going to be adding some of this extra space from this extra wide muslin into the pleats. What's going to happen is it's going to pull the HBL up, and our side seam is going to be at a pretty dramatic angle. Okay? So if I had pre-drawn in a straight line, it wouldn't mean anything to us now anyway. I do want to start off initially straightening out my HBL, pinning my center front, and I am going to temporarily put here's a skin tight hip arc mark. But this HBL level is not going to stay level. I just have it there more for reference for later when I go to true it, so I know how it lays flat on the paper.